It's July 1st. Welcome to the new era.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
Okay, good morning. Welcome in. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me. You have found the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Thank you for joining us. As Connor said in the open, it is July 1st, and not just any July 1st. This is a big milestone moment in the history of college sports. An earth-shifting day for college football, for programs like Nebraska. We'll also cover kind of a milestone, like a milestone that we get every year around this time of on the calendar that relates to what we're going to see in Las Vegas. Las Vegas? That's right. Later this month. So we'll cover both of those things today, along with some recruiting news, some big developments for Matt Rhule. Monday was a big day, for an important day for Nebraska and its offensive line on the recruiting trail. More news potentially in store for Tuesday and the rest of this week. But first, that seismic development, and this one is not a surprise, but it's finally here. Revenue sharing starts today. College athletic departments can begin to pay players directly from the money that they make on ticket sales, merchandise, donations straight from the public. Most important, in the case of Big Ten schools, they can pay players from that pot of money that comes out from Fox, NBC, and CBS in the multimedia rights contract. So $20.5 million is set aside. If you're just learning this, where have you been for the last many months? But football is going to get somewhere on the order of about $14 million to pay its players in the 25-26 fiscal year, which begins today. The fiscal year, the academic year, begins August 25th when Nebraska goes back to class. Training camp will begin on July 28th, which is coming up. The season begins on August 28th, 1 month after that.
Wow. You got your dates all lined up. I'm impressed, actually. It's pretty good.
I just started to roll through that. Some more dates. Halloween will be, we'll stop there.
Nice.
The remainder of that money from the $20.5 million will be divided between men's and women's basketball, at Nebraska volleyball, and in specific cases, you'll see baseball, softball, wrestling, perhaps track. Other athletes get paid some rev share money. So, Connor, I want to ask you this. Let's say that you just showed up from 2015. You portaled into today, July 1st, 2025, and you saw college sports. What would you think?
Wow, that's a great question. I'd probably be wondering why I used my time machine to go ahead 10 years. Like what was I doing? I probably should have went back, or something like that. But
Can't
anyway,
go back.
It's a single time machine, a single use time machine, and I have jumped forward 10 years. I would be surprised, mostly because I would have been I would have. If you would have told me the layout and the format and the look of all this 5 years ago, I would have been surprised. Or 3 years ago, I would have been surprised. I mean, in 2015, we didn't have the transfer portal. We didn't have NIL. I mean, it's hard to imagine a world without that right now, right? I mean, you could say in 2015, like the world was the ecosystem was really good and really, really healthy. Not that it has to be horrible right now, but the Big Ten West still existed. I love divisions. You have your bars set out for what you have to do in order to get to where you want to go. So that was kind of nice. Now it's a little bit more confusing. We'll talk about the playoff and Tony Petitti and all that stuff.
That's right. That also happened on Monday.
Right. Yeah. So a bit of a seismic day, but yes, it would have been. I hosting a radio show daily in Nebraska in 2015, just like I am right now. And it was nowhere near like I remember having conversations like, yeah, there is of course the thing where you could pay the athletes, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that. And it turns out we were a lot closer than anybody thought.
Yeah, there's so much that's different about college sports, and I think it would be hard to comprehend that these these programs have been given, these athletic departments have been given on the order of $20 million to divide up, and that's going to be in addition to what's still out there for NIL. So let's talk a little bit about how that looks right now on July 1st. So the contracts that were signed for NIL deals up until the last couple of weeks, contracts that were signed before rev sharing became a reality in the courts, are going to allow the high profile players in this year to still get paid, if they've received these deals prior to the House settlement being approved. They can still get paid their NIL. They can double dip, essentially. You still get NIL, and you're going to get rev share. But moving forward, all of this NIL junk, all of that stuff that has earned athletes in all kinds of sports hundreds of thousands, and in football and basketball millions of dollars, is now subject to a lot more scrutiny, and it's going to have to go through this clearinghouse. And if your deal calls for you to receive more than $600, it's going to have to be shown to the guardians of the clearinghouse
Galaxy
that you are earning that in some sort of market value type of situation. So that's to come. What's happening now is the paychecks can start to flow straight from the department into the hands of these athletes. So it's if I walked in here from 10 years ago, you would say, well, that's professional sports. And I think that's where we're at today. Let's discuss what the main changes are that we're going to see right away. And we mentioned that revenue sharing and the collective is still going to exist to provide these NIL payments. But for the schools, there's a lot of strategy involved as they start to adjust to the roster limits, the scholarship limits. For football, of course, as we've discussed, you're sitting at 105. Eventually, you're getting Nebraska and some other programs will be over that. But they're not going to just automatically jump to 105 scholarships. There's kind of a little dance that has to exist for these programs to find the right way to spend their money. So the money that you spend on scholarships that go above where they're at right now is going to come out of the $20.5 million on an annual basis. If you want to bump up your scholarship total to 105 or 100, the money that allows you to do that, that's coming off the top of the $20.5 million. So if you're in baseball, let's say you're LSU, which just won a national championship, you're at 11.7 scholarships, which is where everyone's at until today, and you want to go up to 34, which is the new limit. It's taking money away from your football program. It's taking money away from your ability to give revenue sharing dollars to athletes in men's basketball or women's basketball. So all of these decisions and all of the things, all of like the collateral impacts of revenue sharing and the fallout from this House settlement, much of it is, I think still to be determined on how it's going to look, say, 12 months down the road. Interesting story I saw this morning on Tuesday in the Omaha World Herald, written by John Walker. UNO, Omaha, the Omaha Mavericks, not opting in. They're opting out of the House settlement. So I think there will just continue to be these curveballs that are thrown at us over the months ahead, Connor, where you're going to say, wow, I didn't expect that that's the way that this was going to look.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it actually all plays out. athletic directors are eventually going to have to show their hand on these things, and you're going to find out. I think it's a positive, to be honest with you, because you're going to see literally firsthand which sport or which program schools care about most. Because the fact of the matter is, you kind of have to pick a little bit, and not every sport at the school could be funded the way, to the max, the way that you really want to, because of that cap. So it'll be really fascinating to see where a school like Nebraska decides to put their money. What do they say about men's basketball? What do they say about baseball? What do they say about wrestling? What do they say about volleyball? Right. And those programs are going to be funded to a certain extent, but you mentioned the 11.7 for baseball. How many scholarships is Nebraska going to have for baseball? Is it less than that? Is it more?
Less than, it won't be less than 11.7. Obviously it's not going to be 34.
Right.
I would expect
very few teams in the country will go up to 34.
I would think that in year one, ballpark, Nebraska baseball adds 5 scholarships.
But once again, like you said, you're talking about $20.5 million. And, it's funny because that if I'm jumping out of the time machine from 2015 and saying, hey, look, and somebody's telling me that, hey, look, they're paying the student athletes across the entire athletic department $20.5 million, I'd say, whoa, that's pretty crazy. In the grand scheme of things, it's just a small slice of the pie. It's a pretty small slice of the pie what Nebraska gets from a revenue perspective.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're going to hear athletic directors talk about, financial advisors, lawyers, whatever it is, this year, is that they're going to try and find ways to be able to get their athletes more money. And that's where the NIL clearinghouse, will be really, really interesting to watch. How stringent will they be on all that stuff? So it's fascinating, and the temperature has certainly changed.
The $20.5 million is about 15% of what the football program generates in revenue in a year. Nebraska football makes on the order of $130 million or more.
And remember that number,
forward.
that $20.5 million, continues to roll as the revenues get larger. So we're talking about 22, 23, 24, $25 million next year and beyond. As the revenue gets bigger from the conference or whatever you get your money from, that number continues to grow as well. It's a percentage.
We'll talk more about this, of course, as the days and months go by and we get more information about how this is going to work at Nebraska, exactly how many scholarships Nebraska is going to add for its football program, how it's going to impact the basketball program and other programs, and then the money that's going to be paid out too, in addition to those scholarship increases. It's all an evolving story. I think Big Ten Media Days with Troy Dannon and Matt Rhule there is going to be an interesting time to really get in front of key people at Nebraska and begin to put some pieces to the puzzle together. A lot of this is going to be shielded from the public, and that's going to be a little dance that happens not just in Nebraska, but all over the country as people try to understand what it looks like. How many dollars are going to this sport? How many dollars are going to that sport? Who are your highest paid athletes? How much are they earning? What does it look like with the scholarship increases? And different schools, I think, are going to take approaches to revealing some of that. And many won't want to reveal it. So lots more to come. When we come back after a break on this episode, we're going to stick with that theme about Big Ten Media Days that I just mentioned and talk about who is headed there for Nebraska and why are we so obsessed with this annually? It got that way again yesterday. Coming back next.
But first, a word from our friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook, where we are clear of the regular sports. I don't know. We got some stuff coming up this summer. Don't worry. Always a chance for you to get involved with the action with the FanDuel Sportsbook, whether it be baseball daily. We're talking about, the Nerfies. We're talking about overs, unders. You're looking at the weather charts. You're looking at the way the baseball is flying right now, things like that. Betting on people to hit home runs. You can do that with the FanDuel Sportsbook. And then, of course, you can get yourself ready for the fall as well. We're talking about futures and things like that for whether it be college football or the NFL. So get involved with the action today, or you could even just place a same game parlay on today if you're in for the short time as well. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's a great deal. Open the FanDuel app today or head to FanDuel.com/locked on and get yourself started. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. That's right. It's July, just a couple weeks away. 3 weeks away, in fact. Nebraska from today will be Nebraska's Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, which is an event that it's worth reminding people of. Mitch, you kind of hinted at this before we took our last break there. This is for the media, but for whatever reason, people, there's a lot of talk about all this stuff. Who represents your schools? Now, I will say this before I tell you who Nebraska's representatives are. They're not particularly surprising, but we could talk about it. The Big Ten has long been a conference where the representing schools will oftentimes not bring their best players because that's the way their schools operate. That's the way their coaches operate. And it oftentimes is not a showcase for the best players in the conference because that's the conference.
They have some coaches adhere to silly standards, such as we're only going to take seniors to this event, and then annually you don't have the best players in your program as seniors because they've left for the NFL by the time they get to their senior year. Or there are other just kind of cat and mouse things that happen where a coach will not want his quarterback to be out there on the big stage because whatever, doesn't want that player to face pressure, wants to be an antagonist with the media. They decided they wanted to bring their punter as a reward for his great leadership on special teams. I will say that when the list comes out every year, it's always met with great anticipation as you page through it and say, "Oh, Penn State's bringing Drew Aller this year. Wow, that's amazing." Ooh, look,
not Nick Singleton or Katron Allen, by the way, but Drew Aller.
Yeah, the great running backs. You're getting greedy there. Like at least we're going to get the quarterback.
I went to a Big Ten Media Days once that Penn State was in the conference and Saquon Barkley wasn't there. He was on the team, but he wasn't at Big Ten Media Days. And I was like, what? Why am I here? What's going on?
UCLA gets it. UCLA, they're in LA, and they get it because they're bringing Nico Iamaleava to Big Ten Media Days.
Nice.
Give it to me. You do it so well. Gosh.
Because I say it probably like 3 times a day. He's been the only person that's been talked about in college football throughout this early, late
Nico
spring.
Iamaleava is coming to Big Ten Media Days. And what's it going to be like? Is that day 3? The Bruins are day 3, I believe.
Correct. That's correct.
On Thursday, July 24th. We're going to get Nebraska 3 weeks from today. Have we even said yet who Nebraska's bringing? Okay.
Oh, here we go. This is a big moment. Dylan Raiola will indeed be at Big Ten Media Days. There you go. Very exciting. Along with defensive back DeShon Singleton. Not a surprise there. Guy's been in the program for a long time. And maybe a little surprise, Henry Lutovsky from the offensive line is coming along with the group. So Nebraska, those 3 guys, Matt Rhule, Keith Mann, Seamus, they'll hop on the PJ. They'll fly into Vegas, and then they'll get out and be home by Tuesday night for dinner.
Seamus should have just stayed from the Crown. He was there for the Crown in the spring, and when they spent 11 days in Las Vegas. Not an exaggeration, not a joke. I mean, I was joking.
I talked to him about this at the College World Series. He was like, "I've spent way too much time in Vegas, and I'm about to spend more time. It's gonna be horrible."
I'm just going to him for the tour guide. I mean, Seamus, I've spent time with Seamus previously in Vegas that we could do a different episode on, but think about the Rose Bowl 2001. Yeah.
You guys get away for a day?
Nebraska took the day off for Christmas, and there was a trip to Vegas, a quick trip to Vegas from LAX, and Seamus McKnight and I partook in. So we have history there. We have history everywhere, but he'll be there, and I'm going to him for like a dinner wreck. Like the first night we get in, all right, where are we going, Seamus? You spent basically a month here in the spring. Like, take me somewhere good. They the Henry Lutovsky addition to the Nebraska lineup for media days or inclusion is one that struck me as interesting. One, first of all, very glad they're taking Dylan Raiola. Like, if they had made any decision other than to take Dylan Raiola, it would have been the wrong one. He's the one that we want to hear from there. Henry Lutovsky is interesting because I think it's important that Nebraska took an offensive lineman. That's such an essential part of this team and this offense. And it would have been, you could have taken Emmett Johnson. You could have gone the running back route. I think you probably could have taken Heinrich Harburg as a tight end or Luke Lindenmeyer. At the receiver spots, I think they're going to kind of move away from, like, let's not take someone who hasn't played here yet. Let's not, you're not now Dane Keene, Isaiah Hunter, those players, they can stand up in front of the podium and talk to the media and talk to the public when training camp starts. But I think for this Big Ten Media Days thing, they wanted to go with someone who's been in the program and has played for Matt Rhule for a couple of years. And when you start to look at the offensive line, like, the veteran players are injured, and it comes down to Lutovsky or Justin Evans. And the fact that they went with Lutovsky on this decision is intriguing to me, because, now I'm probably going to have to pencil him in or definitely going to pencil him in as a starter up front on offense. So is that right tackle? Is that left guard? What are we looking at there for Henry? He's also not been somebody in his time at Nebraska who's really enjoyed being in front of the microphone. So he's taken a leap here. He's going to have to talk for an entire day, and that'll be new for him.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's cool. I mean, he's a guy that oftentimes gets, I don't know, he just doesn't, he's not like the first two or three guys that come to your head as far as offensive linemen are concerned, but absolutely this brings them closer to the top of those conversations now, which is really cool. No, I think Nebraska's got a good group. There will be many questions. I'm sure Matt Rhule will say something that other people in the conference deem to be ridiculous or blasphemous, or maybe people in the SEC
Feinbaum deems to be ridiculous. Yeah,
100%. There'll be something along those lines. No, I think this is a good group, and like you said, I'm glad Dylan Raiola will be there. Let's quickly touch on what Tony Petitti said on Monday in talking to Joel Klatt. Love it.
Petitti favors the 4-4-2-2-1 plus 3 playoff system for 2026, 2027 when the playoff goes to 16.
Yes.
And this was pretty much known, but it's the first time that the Big Ten commish has come out and said this publicly. The SEC, as we know, is not in favor of the 4-4-2-2-1 plus 3. SEC folks want 5 conference champs and then 11 at-large bids, or that seems to be the favorite among most people from the other major power league. So a couple things here. First of all, I watched this podcast I watched it on YouTube. You could watch this show on YouTube. You can watch this Joel Klatt podcast on YouTube. Big Noon Conversations. Joel brought up an idea. He was like, Tony Petitti, he's got the commissioner with him. He's like, I have an idea. What if we did this? And then he laid out a 4-4. So the 4-4, Big Ten and the SEC, ACC, Big 12. Those are the 2-2. Or we're talking about automatic bids to the playoffs. He said 2.5, 2.5. Are you following? 2.5, Connor,
and then 1-2.
We had this on our mailbag a couple weeks ago.
The
2.5
games. Yes.
Yeah.
You basically take the third place team from the ACC and the Big 12. You have them play each other, and then that team gets one of the last spots or whatever into the college football playoffs. So that was
they stole that from our email friend.
They probably did. Everybody's on YouTube these days. So that was one of the idea. And then the other thing, like, I think the main takeaway that I had from Petitti was not necessarily that he is like throwing his complete support behind a model or another, but basically the thing that he kept saying over and over was like, hey, we're open to ideas. Come to me with ideas. I love all these different ideas that are out there, but I can tell you which idea I don't like. It's the one that the SEC and everyone else in the world seems to support right now. He's like, yeah, I've yet to see anything better than what we have right now, but like, I love ideas. And that's when Joe Clack came up with this, the 2.5 stupid idea. This thing will get figured out eventually, I promise, but it's just not ready right now.
So did Tony Petitti give out his email address or his phone number so people can send in ideas? Because you know how many ideas he would get? Like, if we get a billion ideas and we have no ability to influence it at all. Tony Petitti is one of the main decision makers on this thing. And he's saying, yeah, come to me with your ideas. Okay. RIP to your social media mentions and your inbox there. I hope there's a way that people can actually get stuff to him and he will.
Subject line,
all right.
Ideas.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a break, come back, talk about what happened on Monday for Nebraska in recruiting. It was a big day. That's coming up next. Final segment here of this July 1st episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer is with me. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking with us for 25 minutes, sometimes of rambling, other times of coherent thoughts today. Hey, one clarification from Monday. It was brought to our attention by several listeners that Costco executive members get into the store at 9 a.m.
Yes.
One of those listeners is a frequent contributor, Michael Severe, to the program. He messaged you that. We also got that from a few people in the YouTube comments. So that's why when you arrived at Costco, Connor, on Sunday at 10 a.m. and as you believed it was opening, you saw people leaving with carts full of awesome stuff.
This is great to know because that's kind of what I thought was going on, but I thought it was a little bit more nefarious. It seemed like when I got there, it had been open for hours and hours and hours. And I thought that there was like an underground after hours Costco that I was missing out on. It turns out that I'm just not allowed because I'm not a corporate member. Although maybe I am an executive member.
You might be. I'm an executive member. Yeah, you might be. Just check your.
The star with the car that I get money back at the end of the year. So maybe I can actually do this.
You can get in. You can get in early, and maybe you can stay late. You might want to investigate that.
Whoa.
I also heard I heard you talking about the poop cruise on your show. You have thoughts?
No, I'm done talking about the poop cruise. The cruise where all the toilets backed up and then these people had to come together and save each other. Apparently there's a documentary about it.
I saw it. I watched it with my family the other night.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were just on a cruise. How did this hit with you?
That's why we watched it, because we've just been out cruising in the Gulf and in the Caribbean. This happened in the right off the coast of Mexico, and then the cruise floated. It floated. It was dead in the water, and it just floated up the kind of like a the stuff they were putting in the red bags. They were just floating, and it took a long time it's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. The people they interviewed, many of them, you would have thought that they were under fire from like cruise missiles, and their lives were in danger. Instead, they had to sit on this beautiful cruise ship, which didn't have power, and it started to get ugly out there. But anyway, I was amused listening to you and Josh, your producer, discuss the poop cruise on your show Monday.
Always tune in for the odd news, everybody. You never know what you're going to get.
I know you guys wanted to hear about that. Here's some other news from Monday. Nebraska received 2 commitments for its class of 2026, both from offensive linemen. New Orleans, Edna Carr. Edna Carr is a high school in New Orleans. Leon Noyle is the offensive lineman who committed to Nebraska from New Orleans. And then from Chicago, Mount Carmel High School, 3-time defending state champ in the 7A class in Illinois, is sending Nebraska offensive tackle Claude Mpuma. Puma is his, as like the cat. That's his nickname. He's the big one. He's the 4-star in this class. Nebraska's now highest rated commit in this class of 2027. Played football for 1 year.
Right.
His family is from Cameroon, the country in Africa, and they came to the United States, to Chicago, when Claude was an 8th grader. He played basketball and actually got 3 scholarship offers from FBS programs, Kansas State, Marshall, and Miami of Ohio, before he ever played football. Hadn't been to camps or anything. They just saw him on the basketball court and said, we're offering that guy a football scholarship. So he played football, smart decision, his junior year. And then the likes of Auburn, Florida, Notre Dame, Michigan came calling, and he picked Nebraska on Monday. So that's a significant development for Matt Rhule, Dana Holgorsen, Donovan Raiola, and all people who touch the O-line in Lincoln.
So Claude and Puma, he was one of the, first of all, great name. I mean, first 2 good names, Claude and Leon. That's 2 really good pickups as far as the name team goes. But he was one of the people that was photographed near the large bull that was inside the weight room.
We haven't talked about the live bull.
Oh, we have it on the show. Okay, good. Yeah, he was one of the many recruits that took a picture with the giant bull that was in the Nebraska weight room.
Was it a giant bull or was it a very small bull?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know my bull scale, if you will.
I heard some commentary that might have been very difficult for them to actually find a bull that was that small. Like it wasn't large. So
interesting. It looked big in the one photograph because you usually don't see bulls in a weight room. So that's great.
No, it was very big in comparison to the humans that were near it.
Yes, indeed. So the people are saying that the steer is undefeated, and they might be right about this. Matt Rhule he's out there wearing, clothes that make him look like a person who's supposed to be in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and he is bringing steers into his weight room, and it's working. Look at him. He's even in video games now, if you're watching along with us on YouTube.
Yeah, so big day for Nebraska, and now I think the narrative about this 2026 recruiting class has changed. It's now like everything's okay now. All of a sudden, they've got 8 commits who have joined the group since June 10th, up to 11. And today there's a decision that's going to come down from wide receiver Larry Miles of Winter Garden, Florida. He's been crystal balled by some to Nebraska. And then another name that came on the radar in the recruiting world, the recruiting prediction world, Steve Wiltfong of Rivals and On3 says to keep an eye on linebacker Calvin Thomas of Cypress, Texas, as a Nebraska commit this week. And then on Friday, you have Darian Jones, the Omaha North defensive back, brother of Donovan Jones, Nebraska defensive back, who's set to announce. Sounds like Iowa is the leader for Darian. So will be interesting to watch and see if Nebraska can pull something out. That would be a disappointing way to finish the week on our nation's birthday if Darian Jones of Omaha North goes across the Missouri River to the east.
It would be, but they've basically, I mean, if things break right for Nebraska this week, which it's looking good, with the exception of the Darian Jones stuff, it feels like Nebraska's just about done for their 2026 class, which, I mean, they got
done for now, done for July. I mean, I think they wanted to get to around a dozen or slightly above that when camp opened, and then there'll be some finishing touches, undoubtedly. Yep. Some juggling of spots. I think you'll probably see. You just inevitably you see a player or two leave the group. So some stuff will happen
when you get into the season, and you win or lose. Commits. They flip or they don't, and so momentum matters when you get into the season. But the base is certainly there for this group.
So after all of the and I don't know, there wasn't a lot of hand wringing coming from us, but I think from the people who spend a lot of time discussing recruiting and analyzing recruiting, there were a lot of words like Nebraska's behind or Nebraska has ground to gain. And it was legit. There was an article out on ESPN this week, somewhat prematurely because June was not over yet, that said that Nebraska was one of the teams that fell short in the month of June. And then Monday happens on the last day of June, and there's two big pieces to add to your offensive line, including a player who had options to play for Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Alabama, or Auburn, Florida. And it's like, all right, well, so June wasn't over yet. And now that we're into July, things are looking much better.
Yep. The thing was they had to get it going, and they got it going. They got a bunch of commits in the month of June. So looking to continue to capitalize off of that little bit of momentum they got right now. It's funny how that works. You could turn nothing into momentum in very short order. All right. That is it for us today. We appreciate you guys joining. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. For your second listen, you can check out the Portal Show with Brian Smith, who's got the latest as always. Find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.